I'm Rivka Kahan, and I'm excited to share with you some of the tools that exist at al-hatorah.org to deepen Tanakh learning and teaching. Often when learning a narrative in Tanakh, it's illuminating to notice which words appear with greatest frequency within the narrative, and how those words shed light on its themes and messages. Al-hatorah offers the option to do that, and also to search for which 2- and 3-word phrases appear with greatest frequency within a narrative. And often by looking at all of those pieces of information, we can better understand with more nuance the different themes of a particular biblical narrative. So let's see an example of how this works. Let's go here and then go down to the Tanakh Lab and imagine that we are learning Sefer Yehoshua, Parak Aleph. So if we look first at which individual words appear with greatest frequency within our section, numerically speaking, the words that appear with greatest numerical frequency are Eretz and Natan, which is not surprising since Sefer Yehoshua is ultimately about the gift of the land to Am Yisrael. And perhaps that verb Natan is meant to draw our attention to the fact that while this Sefer is about the conquest of the land, Eretz Yisrael is not something that we acquire just through our own efforts, but ultimately is a gift from Hashem. If we shift to look not at which words come up most from a numerical perspective within our parak, but which come up most frequently relative to the rest of the Sefer, we can click here and see a somewhat different picture. That the words that come up most frequently in our parak relative to the rest of the Sefer are amatz and chazak, words of encouragement to Yehoshua, as he assumes the awesome responsibility of assuming the mantle of leadership from Moshe Rabbeinu. And we understand that this is an important theme of Parak Aleph within the context of Sefer Yehoshua, this transition of leadership. If we click here to see which 2-word phrases come up most in our parak relative to the rest of the Sefer, we see a similar picture, that the 2-word phrase that comes up the most in our parak relative to the rest of the Sefer is chazak and amatz. And we can click on it if we want to see all of the places where that phrase appears. So again, this 2-word phrase seems to focus on the transition of leadership between Moshe and Yehoshua within this parak. If we click now here to see which 3-word phrases come up the most in our parak relative to the rest of the Sefer, we see something interesting. We see that first is the phrase et Eretz Asher, which comes up a number of times within our parak. The second most common phrase relative to the rest of the Sefer is different permutations of Lachem Natativ Kasher. Again, the idea that Hashem gives the land to Am Yisrael. And the third most common phrase in our parak, a 3-word phrase relative to the rest of the Sefer, is Moshe Eved Hashem. So we see that these different phrases focus on the 2 themes that we've identified of our parak. The first 2 illuminate the theme of the gift of the land, and the third focuses on the more localized experience of the transition of leadership from Moshe to Yehoshua, the challenge that Am Yisrael, and particularly the personal challenge that Yehoshua is undertaking within our parak. And by analyzing the words and 2-word and 3-word phrases that come up with greatest frequency in our parak, we can understand how these 2 themes and these 2 underlying concerns form the basis of Parak Aleph and the introduction to Sefer Yehoshua.